coming out this morning. We'll give you a little overview of what's going on with ATR. There won't be any dramatic surprises. I know that in itself is a big surprise, but you know. And anyway, there's more to that in the sense that the fact that there aren't any surprises is one of the attributes that makes ATR so strong right now in terms of stability and dedication to the segment of the marketplace. So ATR, as we know, is the leading turboprop manufacturer in the industry today. We have now almost 1,400 orders for the ATR family. We've approaching 1,100 deliveries, which when you think of where we were about 10 years ago, we'll see that in the slide shortly, it's pretty dramatic from where this industry was a short time ago. The biggest thing, as I talked about surprises when I opened, the big thing is the fact that we have a robust and reliable airplane. When you look at the reliability rate here at 99.7, that's what's important to ATR, but more importantly to its customers. You know, being able to deliver a product on time and profitably is what this business is all about. The other thing that's important to note is that we have 190 operators in over 90 countries, so it's a very diverse operator base in a variety of business models and a variety of operating environments. To that point, ATR is everywhere, and you can see on this slide the sort of the scope of ATR around the world. You know, when I'm talking here, it's always sort of unknown of what ATR is in the U.S. just because of the fact of how the market has evolved over the last several years. But the reality is we've had tremendous success worldwide because it represents an important part of the airline community. It's sort of a foundational asset, as I like to say, in terms of feeding into other opportunities, other larger airline systems, and also in all the big three alliances in terms of SkyTeam, Oneworld, and Star Alliance. Over the last several years, you can see that ATR has been the best seller in the 50 to 90 seat segment. This is as of last year. Obviously, we will have with the sort of the renewal with the scope in the U.S. There's obviously a lot of 76-seaters that will come into play here. But overall, the continued march of success of ATR is evident with this, and also is evident in terms of looking where we are in terms of deliveries. It's sort of completely opposite of whatever probably everybody thinks of when they think of ATR and turboprops. So with that, we've had to sort of get back in the mode of creating an environment that we're sustaining the operation for our customers. As I mentioned before, we've gone from a very low amount of orders and deliveries for the airplane about 10 years ago up to a backlog now. It sits at 221 airplanes as of the end of last year. And fortunately, what has been happening over the last couple of years is that we've been maintaining that backlog number. So we've been sort of sitting at this 220 now for the last several years after the rebirth of the turboprop. And with that, our deliveries, as you can see, has ramped up dramatically. We delivered 74 airplanes last year, a little bit short of a target of 80, but we're targeting another 80 this year and look like to be on task to do that. And with the view that we'll go up to 90 units next year. And again, we want to strike the balance because obviously we're adding value in the marketplace, and the customers obviously want to give it to our customers, but we want to do it in a smart way in dealing with creating the right amount of demand and capacity. The biggest piece of this really has been the ATR 600, the new generation of ATR, which is, as I like to say, not your grandfather's ATR. And with 385 ordered and 135 currently operating, you can see this represents about 10% of the aircraft that are in service today. In a wide variety of miles, and a lot of these are new customers, which is another thing that's important. And I'm going to speak to the leasing piece in a bit, because I think that's the other part of the story here, which is the tremendous acceptance by the leasing community of the ATR 600. You know, leasing is such an important piece of the airline business. It's become even more important in the last several years as people look to sort of get the right value for what they're spending in terms of the operations and so forth. And to this, sort of until 2011, when the first order for a speculative deal on an ATR turboprop was done, we didn't have anybody out there doing that. We now have several lessors that have done speculative orders, but more importantly, we also have a lot of lessors who are playing in the market for leasing of turboprops. And you can see here when we look at it in terms of comparing to sort of the single body, the narrow body, single aisle airplane, while we're sort of lower than that is to this point, it's actually rising. And I think some of that goes back to the point in the earlier slide, which is that when you have 190 operators in 90 countries, you have a very diverse operator base, and that's something that the leasing community wants to see. They want to see that diversification. And the other piece of it too is, and when you look at ATR, you know, we celebrated 30 years of ATR just 2 years ago. What we have is we have airplanes that are sort of the initial generations of ATRs now finding homes in secondary, tertiary roles. And of the sort of 1,100 airplanes delivered, we have about 100 airplanes that are already in freighters. So it's a very stable asset from a lessor's perspective to be able to find ways to utilize the airplane, you know, after it's done its initial several tranches with sort of the standard airline operation. One of the things that we're looking at, obviously, is what technology is being brought to the industry. We hear all about new engines and all those kinds of things on new RJs, and what we see is the fact that it does close on the Q400 turboprop, but not the fundamental of a true ATR turboprop or the most economical airplane out there. And that's an important piece to consider is, you know, you can't beat people at their own game. And when you have an airplane that's designed to be a short haul leader, the economics stand for themselves, as evident by the order book that we have and the success we've had worldwide. We look out, this is a slide that shows sort of what we foresee in terms of the long-term outlook for regional airplanes, and we still see the turboprops play a large role. And if we look, I think it's important to look at this sort of the blue pie there, and excuse the text because it's not easy to see, but in that 30 to 60 seat segment, we sort of see 430 airplanes. I want to focus on that for just a minute, because if we look at that, and it's easy to get excited about looking about larger airplanes and the success we've had in the 70 seat side, but the other piece of this is if we sort of pull into the US market for a moment, looking at where we are in a scope constrained world with the big three as we sit, and with where that sort of 30 to 50 seat segment sits, we can basically assume there are about 500 airplanes sitting there in that marketplace that right now will have to be replaced in the next, let's say, 5 to 7 years most likely, just because of where they sit in their age. And so we certainly believe that ATR turboprops can play a significant role in that marketplace, and it's sort of borne out here in terms of that piece of the pie. So the only new thing I'll talk about today a little bit is the fact that, you know, sort of after, you know, 30 years of being in Washington, D.C. and Northern Virginia, ATR is in Miami. We have completed the move just north of Miami Airport. We're actually sharing the facility with where the Airbus Training Center, for folks who know where that is. Basically because ATR is now ATR Americas, not North America. It also says North America in the programs for the RAA, but we are now called ATR Americas, and that sort of represents the shift in the focus in terms of this hemisphere to the fact that we are now responsible for 150 airplanes here in the region, and that region is now expanded to include Latin America, the Caribbean, and as well in addition to our operators that we already handle in North America. We're in place, and with that we obviously have an enhanced support system in place in Miami in terms of spares, but more importantly with resources for the expertise from a technical side, but also in support of operators with the global maintenance agreements that we have in place. And we have several operators in the hemisphere who operate under that environment. So, you know, sort of to close it up, you know, the story here is that the growth and success of ATR continues. It has had a rebirth here in the last 5 years, and that continues worldwide, and we're looking forward to that being something that occurs in North America. And as I just mentioned with the change of ATR to ATR Americas, we have now sort of adjusted our focus in terms of looking a little bit more larger regional focus for ATR Americas. And we certainly believe that there is going to be a requirement for this 30 to 50 seat replacement cycle coming. And we think that the ATR stands to be a player in that marketplace. We certainly are looking at things that we need to do with the airplane to sort of get it positioned right with the sort of requirements of the North American customer, which quite honestly is significantly different than customers anywhere else in the world. So that's sort of, it's a two-pronged challenge we face there. And at the end of the day, we are all about being a strong and ongoing partner for our customers. That's, at the end of the day, that's where our focus is, in making sure our customer is successful so that we can be successful. And with that, I'll close it up, and this just happens to be the inaugural flight of a RA member, Empire Airlines, to Molokai in Hawaii when they started operating for Ohana by Hawaiian. So that's my story. I appreciate your time, and if there are any questions, I'll try and do my best to answer them.
When are you organizing a press trip to Ohana?
Yeah.
I'll be leading the charge. No, it's actually, I wish Tim were here, but I know he's in the board meeting. I think Tim Comberg will tell you that it's been a very, very successful startup to the operation there. And it's nice to have sort of the newer generation ATR flying inside the United States.
Can you remind us, they're 500s with them, are they?
Yeah, they're 42 500s. They have 2 in service, and the third one, I believe, ferried last week.
Excuse my ignorance, but are you closing the DC office? Or?
The DC office is no longer there.
Okay. Since when?
As of January 1.
Oh, okay.
And we renamed it ATR Americas after that, and we sort of had to get through the legal piece of it.